9 months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus, a 15-year-old girl did the exact same thing. Her name was Claudette Colvin. She was arrested, dragged off the bus, and called every slur imaginable. Civil rights leaders saw her courage, then decided she wasn't the right symbol. Too young, too dark-skinned, pregnant and unmarried. So they waited for someone more respectable. This is the story of the teenager who sparked the Montgomery bus boycott and why history almost forgot her name. March 2nd, 1955. Claudette Colvin, a 15-year-old black girl, was riding the Highland Gardens bus home from school in Montgomery, Alabama. The bus filled up. A white woman was standing. The driver, Robert W. Clear, ordered Claudette and 3 other black students to move to the back. The others moved. Claudette stayed seated. She'd been learning about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth in school. She'd been studying the Constitution. And in that moment, she decided, enough. "It's my constitutional right to sit here," she said. The driver called the police. What happened next was traumatic. Police officers boarded the bus, grabbed Claudette roughly, and dragged her off. She was crying, terrified, but she went limp. Passive resistance, just like they taught in church. It didn't matter. The cops handcuffed her, threw her in the back of a squad car, and drove her to an adult jail. At the station, they charged her with violating segregation laws, disorderly conduct, and assaulting an officer. A complete lie. Claudette was 15 years old, 5'1", and weighed maybe 100 pounds. She hadn't touched anyone, but she was black, female, and defiant. That was crime enough. News of Claudette's arrest spread through Montgomery's black community like lightning. Civil rights leaders, including E.D. Nixon and Rosa Parks herself, visited the Colvin family. They saw potential. This could be the test case to challenge bus segregation in court. But then they started evaluating Claudette as a symbol. Was she sympathetic enough? Respectable enough? And this is where it gets ugly. Claudette was dark-skinned in a community that valued light skin. She was working class. Her family wasn't prominent. And then, a few months later, Claudette got pregnant by a much older man. The civil rights leaders made their decision. She wasn't fit to be the face of the movement. So they waited. They waited for someone older, more middle class, with lighter skin and an unimpeachable reputation. On December 1st, 1955, 9 months after Claudette's arrest, Rosa Parks, a 42-year-old NAACP secretary with a respectable background, refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus. It wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. Rosa Parks was brave, absolutely, and her action was crucial. But Claudette Colvin had already done it. She'd already been arrested. She'd already shown it could be done. Yet when the Montgomery bus boycott launched, Claudette's name was barely mentioned. The boycott lasted 381 days and changed America. But the legal victory came through a different case. Browder versus Gale. And here's the twist. Claudette Colvin was one of the 4 plaintiffs. Along with 3 other black women who'd been arrested on buses, Claudette testified in federal court. At 16 years old, she stood up and told her story to white judges in the heart of the segregated South. Her testimony was powerful, unshakable. The judges ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. Claudette Colvin helped win the case that ended bus segregation in Alabama. But when the press covered the victory, they focused on Rosa Parks. Why was Claudette erased? The civil rights movement had to be strategic. They needed symbols that white America couldn't easily dismiss. A pregnant, dark-skinned teenager didn't fit the narrative. It's painful, but true. Respectability politics meant that some heroes got celebrated while others got hidden. Claudette understood this, even as it hurt. "They said I was too young, too dark, too poor, too loud," she later recalled. "History had me glued to the seat." Years later, Rosa Parks herself admitted that Claudette had been treated unfairly, that she deserved recognition. But by then, the history books were written. After the boycott, Claudette's life was hard. She faced harassment and threats. She couldn't find work in Montgomery. Eventually, she moved to New York City, working as a nurse's aide for decades, raising 2 sons as a single mother. She lived in the Bronx, largely anonymous, while Rosa Parks became an icon with statues, stamps, and national holidays. Claudette didn't speak publicly about her role in the civil rights movement for 40 years. It was too painful to be forgotten while others were celebrated. She felt erased from her own history. Then in the 1990s, historians began rediscovering Claudette Colvin. Researchers interviewed her. Books were written, documentaries were made. A new generation learned that Rosa Parks wasn't the first. Claudette Colvin was. In 2021, at age 82, Claudette finally got her juvenile arrest record expunged. A judge officially cleared her name 66 years after her arrest. She stood in court and said, "I'm no longer a juvenile delinquent." The courtroom erupted in applause. It was vindication, but it came so late. Claudette Colvin's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about whose heroism gets celebrated and whose gets buried. The civil rights movement needed Claudette's courage, used her testimony in court, but didn't want her face on the poster. Why? Colorism, classism, sexism. The same systems they were fighting against infected the movement itself. Today, Claudette is finally getting recognition. Libraries, schools, and awards are being named after her. But imagine if she'd been celebrated from the beginning. Imagine if 15-year-old black girls learned they could be heroes too, exactly as they are. That's the lesson of Claudette Colvin. Every hero deserves to be remembered, not just the ones who fit neat narratives.